Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for standing by for China Online Education Group's second quarter 2022 earnings conference call. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. Today's conference call is being recorded. I will now turn the call over to your host, Ms. Ni Yan, Investor Relations for the company. Please go ahead, Ni.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second quarter 2022 earnings conference call of China Online Education Group, also known as 51Talk. The company's results were issued via newswire services earlier today and are posted online. You can download the earnings press release and sign up for the company's distribution list by visiting the IR section of our website at ir51talk.com. Mr. Jack Huang, our Chief Executive Officer, and Mr. Ming Xu, our Chief Financial Officer, will begin with some prepared remarks. Following the prepared remarks, there will be a Q&A session. Before we continue, please note that the session will contain forward-looking statements made under the Safe Harbor provisions of the U.S. Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. Forward-looking statements involve inherent risks and uncertainties. As such, the company's results may be materially different from the views expressed today. Further information regarding this and other risks and uncertainties is included in the company's Form 20-F and other public filings as filed with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The company does not assume any obligation to update any forward-looking statements except as required under the applicable law. Please also note that earnings press release and its conference call include discussion of unaudited GAAP financial information as well as unaudited non-GAAP financial measures. 51Talk's press release contain a reconciliation of the unaudited non-GAAP measures to the unaudited most directly comparable GAAP measures. I will now turn the call over to our CEO, Jack Huang. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mi. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our conference call today. In the second quarter of 2022, we successfully completed the divestiture of our China mainland business, and we are solely focused on our overseas business going forward. Starting from the third quarter, 100% of the company's revenues will be derived from overseas markets. Furthermore, to reflect our overseas focus, we will hold an annual general meeting on September 30th to vote on the proposal of changing our legal name from China Online Education Group to 51Talk Online Education Group. We are very excited to report another quarter marked by continued top-line growth of our overseas business. In the second quarter, our overseas business continued to see healthy and sustainable development. Our second quarter overseas business net gross billing reached $7.8 million, representing 46.5% sequential growth. The number of our paying students reached 8.1 thousand, representing 25% sequential growth, and the number of our active students with attended lesson consumption reached 40.9 thousand, representing a 60% sequential growth in the second quarter. In addition, our overseas business achieved break-even in cash flow during the 2 months of May and June. This reflects our strong execution of healthy growth strategy in overseas business, and we are looking forward to the future performance of cash flow. We are sorry to announce that our CFO, Mr. Min Xu, submitted his resignation for today for personal reasons, and his last day will be September 30th, 2022. Our VP of Finance, Ms. Cindy Chen Tang, will assume the role of CFO on October the 1st, 2022. On behalf of the Board of Directors and myself, I would like to thank Min for his service over the past 4 years, leading our company to profitability by focusing on sustainable growth. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. With that, I will now turn the call over to Min.
Thank you, Jack, for your nice words. I want to thank every 51Talk investor, employee, teacher, student, parent, and partner for your support in the past 4 years, making my every moment at 51Talk a memorable one. Jack has led us through the most difficult time in 51Talk history, and I trust 51Talk under his leadership is only going to grow stronger, fulfilling our dream of helping everyone talk to the world. My successor, Cindy, current VP Finance, has been with the company for 8 years and played an instrumental role in the company's IPO in 2016 and turning mainland China business profitable in Q4 2019. I'm confident that she will leverage her leadership and experiences and work with the team to reproduce the success in the overseas market. So now let's take a look at Q2 numbers. The momentum of our overseas business continued into Q2 with gross billing reaching $7.8 million, surpassing the top end of our guidance of $7.5 million. We will continue on our pathway of sustainable growth and focus on delivering strong value proposition to our students in this rapid developing overseas market. Please note that we completed divestiture of our China mainland business on June 30th, and we'll focus on overseas market going forward. Since we started our overseas business in July last year, there is no comparable figure for Q2 last year. Net revenues for Q2 of continued business were $3.5 million, representing 87.7% sequential growth. Gross margin for the second quarter was 79.2%. Q2 operating expenses of continuing business were $6.9 million, a 38.3% sequential increase from $5.0 million last quarter. Q2 sales and marketing expenses of continuing business were $3.6 million, a 79.3% sequential increase from $2 million for last quarter. Q2 product development expenses of continuing business were $0.7 million, a 36.4% sequential decrease from $1.1 million for last quarter. Q2 G&A expenses of continuing business were $2.6 million, among which $0.5 million were one-time fee related to the divestiture of our China mainland business. Excluding this one-time cost, Q2 G&A expenses would have been $2.1 million. G&A expenses for the overseas business were $1.9 million in the first quarter of 2022. Q2 operating loss of continuing business was $4.1 million. Q2 net loss was $15.0 million. Net loss for continuing overseas business and the discontinued mainland China business were $4.6 million and $10.4 million respectively. Q2 GAAP and non-GAAP EPS were both negative 67 cents. The company's total cash equivalent, and the restricted cash were $22.1 million at the end of the second quarter. Advances from students of continuing business were $10.2 million at the end of the second quarter. Looking forward to the third quarter of 2022, we currently expect the net gross billing to be between $8.0 million and $8.2 million. The above outlook is based on our current market conditions and reflects the company's current and preliminary estimate of the market and operating conditions and the customer demand, which are all subject to change. This concludes our prepared remarks. We will now open the line for questions. Operator, please go ahead.
We will now begin the question and answer session. To ask a question, you may press star then 1 on your telephone keypad. If you're using a speakerphone, please pick up your handset before pressing the keys. If at any time your question has been addressed and you'd like to withdraw your question, please press star then 2. For the benefit of all participants on today's call, please limit yourself to 2 questions. If you have additional questions, you may re-enter the queue. Please ask your question in Chinese second, then follow up with an English translation. At this time, we will pause momentarily to assemble our roster. The first question comes from Long Yin Lin with the Benchmark Company. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning, good evening. Thanks for taking my questions. So the company delivered better than expected revenue growth for the second quarter. Just wondering what are some of the key drivers behind that? And can management give a breakdown of your key market performance for the quarter? Thank you. 就我翻译一下，就是说，公司这个季度的增长比前面就是指引要好，想问问就是主要的这个原因是什么？然后就是管理层能不能给一个就是这个关于就是主要的这个市场的一些就是表现这个季度，谢谢。
Jack, you want to take the question?
OK， 我们其实这个，因为我们现在整体的这个海外业务呢，目前还比较早期，就所以我们其实认为呢，这个过去几个季度的这种快速的成长，我们其实还是非常大的leverage 了我们过去的这个在中国大陆地区成功的这些要素啊，其实尤其是我们认为呢，其实像在这个英文学习在线英文学习的这个市场，其实跟其他的 T12 学科还不一样，因为其实英文呢是一个在全世界的所有的这些非英语国家当中，它都有这样的学习的这个需求，其实呢这是一个普世的，同时呢是一个非常大的市场。
Yeah, so we believe the overseas market is still in a very early stage, and the strong growth we see in the past quarter or a few quarters really leveraged our success factors, in our existing China market. And we believe the English training market is very different from other education products, because the demand for English learning is a common demand for many countries and markets in the world, and we see a very strong demand in the overseas market. Jack, continue.
然后就是从这个对，我刚才还没有讲完的是，就是说我们其实可以就我们可以看到，我们之所以我们其实花了大概从去年的7月份到现在大概不到1年的时间，其实我们的成长其实是大概走过了我们过去其实在中国大陆可 可能3到4年的这个时间。就是这样快速的成长，其实这个背后的原因呢，还是因为我们其实就我们认为还是有很大的原因呢，是我们在过去的这个10年当中，我们在中国大陆快速的积累这个这么长时间当中积累起来的我们的这个我们的技术优势包括我们的这个产品优势，我们的菲律宾外教的这种供应链优势，以及我们开发出来的这些完备的针对 K12学生的这个课程体系，那么这些呢，可以让我们其实可以为我们现在的目标市场东南亚地区的这些学生，就提供了非常有竞争力，在当地市场非常有竞争力的这个产品组合。
We do see very strong growth since we started our overseas business in July last year, and so the strong growth of the past year is actually a result of our expertise and experience in China market in the past decade. We in the past decade we already accumulated a lot of knowledge in terms of technology, product development, in terms of Filipino teacher operation and K-12 curriculum, and so as a result, we do have a very solid, very competitive product in our overseas market from the very beginning.
然后从这个地区的这个 breakdown 来看，就目前我们90%的用户都在东南亚地区然后可能有10%不到是在这个东南亚以外的其他地区。
So in terms of a market breakdown, majority of our gross billing, roughly 90% of our gross billing are from Southeast Asia and only 10% from outside of Southeast Asia.
好，谢谢
Thanks.
Thank you. It's very helpful. My second question is about the company's outlook. Can you provide an outlook for the company's revenue growth and profitability in the second half 2022 and next year? Does the company expect any macro impact on the overseas market?
I'll take this question. So we provide Q3 gross billing guidance, which is $8.0 to $8.2 million US. And if you look at Q4, it's likely going to be flat sequentially given the historical seasonality. But again, we're not giving our guidance right now. It just give you some color on how to estimate the Q4. And we do see many positive macro impact in our target market. For example, COVID-19 continues to boost online education needs over the world, and the digitalization process in Southeast Asia continue to have a very positive impact on our on the online education demand in our target market. And we're very confident that the overseas market is going to be very, very attractive for us. And in addition, in terms of the online English training, we have a very we kind of have a niche product, and we have very limited competition in many of our target markets. So our strategies continue to focus on our customer needs and satisfaction, which will in turn continue to drive the retention and referral, and which are we believe are the key factors to drive our success in China market, and we believe it will do the same magic in the overseas market. I hope this answers your question. No.
我来补充一下关于我再补充一下刚刚您问的关于这个未来的 profitability 的这个问题。就是其实您可以看到我们过去在我们这个模式当中呢，因为我们是先收到这个预付款那我们现在其实报的这个gross billing 其实它您可以理解为是这个预收款，那么它在用户呢上完课之后呢才会确认为这个收入那么你如果去研究我们过去的这个在中国的业务的话，我们大概是在2018年实现了首季度的现金流的转正，然后呢我们在2019年我们大概在2019年 Q4 实现了第一个季度的 US GAAP 的这个break even。 所以呢就是说我们对于我们自己的目标呢是第一步呢我们先实现这个现金流的转正。那么我们其实我们在这次季报当中我们也披露了，我们其实因为我们是大概4月底我们的这个spin off 是6月底完成的，但是呢我们其实把4月底呢我们是把国内业务和海外业务的这个财务上是做了这个就比较清楚的这个切割。那么从4月底可以计算开始，我们实际上5、6月份2个月的整个的现金流cash flow 其实 actually 呢是 break even 的。那么我们现在也预估呢，在未来的这个3季度，我们有非常大的这个可能性呢，会是一个正向现金流。那么其实呢，这个跟我们过去就像我刚才讲，我们从2011年开始在中国成立，我们到2018年才实现了首季度的这个正向现金流。所以呢，其实我们认为我们在海外呢，目前的这个成长其实还是就我们还是非常健康的我们是在一个快速的成长的情况下呢，其实实现了很快的就可以实现了这个正向的现金流。那么我们认为呢就当然我们目前并没有对于未来何时可以盈利的这个具体的时间表，但我们认为呢就我们认为这只是一个时间问题就当我们开始实现正向现金流之后，那么其实呢在未来的整个的这个盈利它是一个时间的递延。
Okay, so Jack will add a little bit information on the profitability. And if we look at the student advance, we know that we're getting the cash first, and then the revenue gets recognized after the lessons are consumed. So as a result, our business has a very unique pattern. If you look at our historical data, the company was established in 2011 and first achieved cash flow break-even in 2016. That's a 5-year period. And then in 2018, we achieved gross billing contribution positive. That's another 2 year. Then in 2019 Q4, we achieved the GAAP profitability, and that's about a year and a half. However, our pace of getting from the start of the business going to cash flow break even, then go to gross billing contribution positive, then to GAAP profitability will be much accelerated in the overseas market compared to the China market. One of the key reasons is that because we've done this once and we have the experience, we have the expertise, we know how to do it. If you look at, even though we did our spin-off at the end of June, our reference date is end of April. So from end of April to end of June, we've already seen that the overseas market cash flow has achieved the break-even. And it is very likely that Q3 we're going to target cash flow break-even for Q3 too. So basically, right out of the gate, after only 1 year, starting our overseas business, we already achieved the cash flow break-even, and we do see
we do see the timeline for achieving gross billing contribution positive and GAAP profitability will be much more accelerated compared to the China market.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I will jump back into queue. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Again, if you have a question, please press star then 1. As we are reaching the end of our conference call, I'd like to turn the call back over to the company for closing remarks. Ms. Ni Yan, please go ahead.
Thank you once again for joining us today. If you have further questions, please feel free to contact 51Talk's Investor Relations through the contact information provided on our website.
The conference has now ended. You may now disconnect your line.